Big news coming out of the SEC today. I can't believe I get to say that about Oklahoma, even though they've been in the conference for a year now. But Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl, a guy that has been very well known in college and NFL circles, is going to Oklahoma to be the GM. Joe, I know that you know Jim. I know that you've been around the Senior Bowl. I'm going to let you kick this one off first. Your thoughts on him going to Oklahoma and being the GM for the Sooners?
Yeah, I think that this is a great hire for the main reason that he has been around the NFL and college game for as long as he has, and he's been around it at a high level. He's been running the Senior Bowl successfully. It's been the most premier scouting event out of any of the scouting events. There have been ebbs and flows in the success of other events for the lead up to the NFL draft. It has become, and it has been always the precursor for setting up a lot of guys going on to be risers throughout the process, a lot of guys that would go on to be top 10 picks. It creates an opportunity for the media and for team personnel to interact and to be all in one setting in one area in Mobile, Alabama. Nagy's background, I think, is exactly what these college programs need in order to modernize their roster structure, their team building approach. The only thing that I'm slightly
here it is. We're going to agree on this.
Cautious on this. He doesn't. You're hiring somebody with the intention. Your general manager should be in the intention of knowing how to handle contract negotiations. You need somebody to have that. And he's never negotiated a contract, to my knowledge. He has just recruited guys to come play in the event based on the input that he receives from the NFL, from what teams want to see, which guys they want to participate. I don't think that this role that he's taking should require some sort of a background of salaries and roster management and cap management. I just have no idea if he's going to know how to handle that.
Dude, I got to be real with you. I thought we were going to come in here and argue this exact point. Spot on, dude.
He doesn't have it. He doesn't have the experience.
Well, here's the thing. You hit the nail on the head. I'm so glad that we actually agree on this because I'm tired of fighting. But look, there's different things that you can do, right? Meaning, number one, I think it's smart in this direction. Oklahoma has to pivot. What do I mean? They have to pivot in the sense of that they got to out-scout teams. They're not going to be in this situation where they're going to go in the SEC and start plucking people from other programs. They're not going to do it. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. I know that the fan base of Oklahoma thought when they had that SEC patch on that they would walk in here and start taking players from other programs. Joe, they're not going to take them from Texas. Sorry, they're not. They're not going to take them from LSU. They're not going to take them from A&M. They're not going to take them from Georgia unless they're spending outrageous amounts of money. They may want to do that. I don't know. What can they do that doesn't cost them the money that way? They can out-scout them. Is there a 3-star kid that nobody knows about that they can get in here, develop, and he can make an impact? Those are the things where you can start really hitting. However, I'm with you. There's a massive difference right now when it comes to recruiting, and especially when it comes to recruiting in reference to high school. The portal for him, I think, will be a little bit different because he'll have the agents, he has the contacts, he understands the game. He'll have to learn the NIL from a portal aspect. I'm with you. And here's another thing. I've seen everybody talk about today, well, he recruited for the Senior Bowl.
It's not really recruiting. You get an invite, you're going to the Senior Bowl. It's not. But he's not going to be doing any recruiting as the general manager. It's roster management.
No. That's not true. Let me tell you what these general managers have to do. Coaches recruit, then everything goes to the general manager. When you get in these top 2 situations, these negotiations go to the general manager. It's not the coach that's dealing with this. You're having to out-recruit and incentives, to your point about contracts, to get them to go there. Joe, this is just as much as recruiting. Ask any GM in the SEC right now. They will tell you that they're more over recruiting because of the money aspect of it than any coach. What does the coach do? The coach gets them involved and want them to play at the school. Joe, as soon as it goes to money, they're not going to the head coach anymore. They're not going to the coaches, the position coaches. They go to the GM's office. That's where they're going to negotiate these contracts. You hit the nail on the head. perfectly when you talk about this. He's going to have to recruit. He's going to have to wheel and deal and get in there. So
that feels like, I don't mean to cut you off, but that feels a little less about recruiting and a little bit more about contract negotiations with NIL agents, which is still the concern that we're having here. It's less to try to incentivize a kid to come and more of like, hey, I got to work through these details with an agent.
But it's still, I will put it as recruiting with this. It's like NFL free agency, right? Let's call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
State income tax becomes a big thing. Dude, Joe, the money's the money. Most of these teams are matching one another, right? Like most of these teams will match each other. I mean, there will be specific details and players that you're not going to match for, okay? When you come to the four-star kid, when both things are matching, it does become a recruiting battle when it comes to incentives. How do you put this? How do you put that? Here's what he's got to do for this to succeed. He's got to out-scout everybody. Now, for me, though, when it comes to this upcoming season means nothing for him. This isn't.
Oh, yeah, no.
But here's my thing, though, with this. It's a big-name, flashy hire, right? I mean, it's a everybody's like, oh, shit, look at Oklahoma. What's going to happen if they go 6-6 or 7-5 again? What if the O-line isn't fixed? Then what? I really hope that this was not a Brent Venables hire. I hope this was an Oklahoma AD hire. Because
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Well, because listen, what are you going to do if he goes 6-6, 7-5 again, Joe? Are you going to move on from him?
Well, I would hope that Jim Nagy has the foresight to negotiate and say, like, hey, if Venables gets fired, am I going with him? I think that to angle that, these general manager roles are actually technically a part of the athletic administration. They're part of the athletic department. So right. I would think that there would be a little safety there. Where his impact is going to be felt first, I think, is going to be through the first transfer portal class. I'm really curious on, because like the talent acquisition part and the knowing of like who is worth going after in the portal and seeing what good players look like, that's where Nagy's going to shine. Like that's where he's going to do the best. He's going to be able to have the eye to identify like, hey, this is a guy that, let's call it what it is. When you're in the portal, you're looking for guys that are good enough to compete and play in the NFL. You're looking for sophomores and juniors that could eventually go on to get drafted. So he has the eye to identify that stuff.
Well, let me ask you a question because you're more in the NFL Senior Bowl world. I think it's a little bit different because he doesn't have the ability now to call a head coach from another program and say, hey, who's your top player?
Well, the inverse of what the real reality, and I'm there's a little bit of speculation in this, but like from what I've heard from people, the process is mostly based off of like, hey, the NFL, you talk to the NFL, you talk to NFL scouts, you talk to NFL general managers, and you get a really strong, they build their own board, they do their own scouting, but your decision is based on tailoring towards the NFL getting to see the guys that they want to see in a competitive environment against the best. That is the whole purpose of it. They're not going to go rogue and just invite a bunch of random dudes just because they think that they're the best players. They want the NFL to want to be there, and that's how that relationship has always been built and why it's flourished and why it's been so successful and why the best players have consistently gone there. So to that point, some of the evaluation and roster building for the Senior Bowl has already been done for him. And that's a negative that I kind of hear, if I to put it lightly.
I'll be honest with you. Look, I've seen Jim at LSU practices for what it's worth. He does good out there by himself in scouts. I'll give him that. I've literally seen it with my own eyes. Literally.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not saying he doesn't, because I can attest that he actually does it. The statement you just made is 1,000% correct, though. It's not an opinion. It is what's happening here. So, listen, I think it's a massive, big name hire. It can't be connected to Venables. There's a lot that he's got to prove here.
Yeah,
Joe, Oklahoma, for what it's worth, if he's able to be successful, this is. They need this one to hit because you're going to have to recruit in a different way than everybody else. I'm sorry, you're going to have to. And I think that's the world that you got to live in right now. He's going to have to out-scout. Now, in reference to Jim, I'll give him this, okay? He was in the NFL for 18 years in the scouting department. It's not like he doesn't have experience. But to your point, though, that you stated earlier, the GM role is much, much more and much, much different than what you think of a GM. And a GM, it's only free agencies that you're recruiting for. This is a high school thing, too. Joe, their high school big board right now is going to have 150 players on it at minimum. Like at minimum.
Yeah.
95% of those kids will not go to Oklahoma. 95%. He's never gone through that before. It is a different beast. Listen, I'm not saying I don't like the hire because I just, outside of being a big name, will this work? It will be my ultimate question.
Yeah, there are definitely questions that you're bringing up that need to be proven. Like how does his role and how does his impact show up with high school recruiting? And they've recruited really well at the high school level. They have had good high school recruiting classes, but the way that you succeed is by having and finding the low 4-star, 3-star kids and those kids panning out and developing and turning into impactful starters. Having a really good general manager for identifying talent, I think, is important. But I would love to know and to see, how does he step into this relationship of handling recruits and also handling negotiations with transfer portal players and with recruits? Because you can identify players all you want. You can find a lot of great players, but if you're not getting them and they're not coming to play, it's meaningless. Well, so that's what needs to be answered.
There is a massive thing that we've left out here the entire time. His number one goal right now for every GM in the country is roster retention. Let me tell you the coaches let me tell you the coaches that here talk about roster retention every year. Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian literally will not have a spring game because of roster retention.
Yeah.
Matt Rule, Brian Kelly, Ryan Day, Steve Sarkisian. Let me just throw this at you. They all are saying that none of them are having the negotiations with the player. So again, he's going to okay, like I'm not trying to, I know it probably comes off, my aura comes off, pause, but it comes off that I think that this is a bad aura.
No, I don't think that you're framing it that way. I'm sure
not
Oklahoma fans will think that you are, but
well, Oklahoma fans, let me just say this. I got obliterated by your fan base last offseason when I said you're going 6-6. Joe, I got a question. I got a question for you. What did they go?
6-6. Oh, 6-7. 6-7. Sorry.
Okay. It's a different beast, buddy. When you get in the SEC and the Big Ten, it's a different beast. I'll give this example. Let's take the SEC out of it. How's USC's recruiting? They're in the Big Ten. Why did more Big Ten teams get California kids than ever before? It literally was a record. They don't want you having them. Even if they don't think the kid will pan out, they don't want you to have it. Yeah. So again, good googly moog. I guess Dan Lanning took like 2/3 of them, though. We got to
remember that like most of those kids.
We talk more about recruiting and high school recruiting in the last 3 weeks than we've done in the last 3 years.
I'm fine with